This is April 24th, 2006. Our interview today is with Bill Vaughn. I'm Chuck Lundquist. This is part of the oral history collection for the University of Alabama and Huntsville. Bill, it's good to have you with us today. We usually start out by letting the interviewee tell you a little bit about where he spent his youth, where he got an education, how he got into the space program here in Huntsville. Bill, can you do that?
I was born in Clearwater, Florida in 1930. And spent my youth days in Ortonville, Florida, 20 miles away, and graduated from Ortonville High School there. Attended the University of Florida and graduated there in 51. Went to the Florida State University under the Air Force Institute of Technology program and completed graduate work in meteorology at Florida State in 52. Spent the next 3 years in the Air Force as a staff weather officer. Came out in 1950, I guess that would be 5, and moved to Lincoln Air Force Base. Research meteorologist, working in lots of warfare area, actually, in simulant delivery to simulate processing by which gases and other things are used. In any event, what led me to Huntsville was in 1957. In that radio was coming up here, who was a colleague there at David, and he talked me into doing him my Form 57. I wasn't particularly interested in reading, but I had done it, but it seemed to be working out quite well there. But I gave it to him. He's coming up for an interview with ABMA. And he came back and, or he left it up here, I should say. Well, about the next week, I got a telephone call from the personnel office up here asking whether I'd be interested in having an interview. And so I reluctantly, since I'm amazed that he even followed through with it, to be honest with you, so I really didn't show much interest, but I did come up. And they were looking for someone who had experience in test range in particular. And Gerard Weissig at the branch, Aerogeophysics branch it's called, under Skyster, who had the Aeroballistics laboratory here at the UMac. In any event, apparently I was what he was looking for. So he was anxious for me to join him because he was trying to fire some small vet rockets down at Patrick Air Force Base. Wasn't quite understanding how an Air Force test range operated, but I knew how one operated on the technical day. But in any event, I was offered to come up, and they said, well, what would it take to come up? So I gave them 4 positions to come up, and I didn't think they would honor me, including another 2 or 3 months to clean up things down there. And believe it or not, the next week I got a call, and I went down the list all 4 of them, and yes. So I told my wife, Jerry, that I said, well, I was not in a very good position to say no. So I accepted the position, and we came to Huntsville, and we came in town on January the 30th, 1958, which, as you may recall,
That was auspicious.
It was an auspicious day. They were having a great celebration. 401, and we came in about sundown or thereabouts, and Frank had come up. Jerry asked me what was going on in Huntsville there. What was all of the celebrating about? I looked at it very curious. Well, they're celebrating my arrival, obviously, because we're coming to the UMA. So I both still laugh out of that today, but in any event, that brings you up to the time how I got to Huntsville, which was a fortuitous circumstance, to say the least. And that really deserves a lot of credit for that.
Oh, what did you work on when you first got here?
Well, Gerhard, in his endeavor, had the responsibility for flight evaluation, fact, we call Spear, worked for him, and they just opened out a few groups. So he had that particular thing. He also had a strong interest in the atmosphere and in the environment design requirements within the redstone and et cetera, and all those. And so he went on later, by the way, finished up his doctorate in that particular area back in Germany. But in any event, they were trying to learn more about the wind, wind shear, and turbulent environment above the level of the radio zones, which terminated around 30 kilometers. The group at Fort Monmouth, they signal lab was there, and that was where the atmosphere could do a lot of support for the Army came out of. And he had a relationship with them, but he didn't have anybody on his group, which was very large, that knew anything about the ranges and how to get to rocket star and everything, all kinds of stuff. So, among other things, that's what the first assignment was in that area. So I spent probably half of my first year at AVMA in travel to the Cape. Pretty tired and off water rockets down there for the next few years. And then the ships got to became masters, as a matter of fact. The group was pioneered that area. That was a nice precision rocket. It was a little rocket. So we collected a lot of data that no one else had collected. It subsequently expanded to kind of a local group. That was the first part of it. And that led to that first one thing and then another. The Lady Shield, for example, on the capsule.
The reentry.
Yeah, reentry thing there. One of the things that had to be considered there was coming down to cloud drops, rain conditions, and aerosols and whatnot, what that would do to it. And as a matter of fact, the precipitation and the cloud drop criteria that was put together for that in the table still exists today and is still being used, as a matter of fact. It's been going over several times. I can't take complete credit for having the original ideas. Helen Whiteman, who was at at the Fort Monmouth lab, the top physicist there, he and I worked together on it. And so it's very far the word came from the help, not supposed to be. Right. Anyway. So that's the first one thing, and then another. And as you're aware, during the late 50s, design work with the Persian rocket. We were working on the Persian, but actually we were working on the side, charging a time off, the Persian. And so,
off the record.
those are good days. But in any event, that led into spelling out all of the environmental design requirements, thermal, construction, control, where you name it.
Any rocket, the organization.
Anything that came out of the Marshall, what became the Marshall Space Flight Center, came out of that group once we transferred over. There was a short one we transferred to. Gerard was a little focused on his experience. The package reference atmosphere came out in the late 50s out of the group. And that was the first time anything other than the standard atmosphere ever been used in the design of the group. That's the substance.
Well, the organization kept evolving, of course, and how did you follow through the various pieces of the Marshall organization activities?
Well, it's fairly, again, fortuitous that I ended up in the National Marshall Space Flight Center and came over with the group versus staying with the Army Enlistment. Part of the group, and vice included, stayed with the AVMA. I was in the officer of the laboratory and one of the other things there. And he was quite anxious for me and the others to stay. Nicer and Gerhard Reese spoke to me about staying. And that was kind of hard to turn down, as a matter of fact. Didn't have that kind of respect. So myself and all the men of war of us were the three that transferred over from the Army Ballistic Missile Agency to NASA Marshall Space Flight Center with Reicher in the lab, and we formed what was called the Aerospace Environment Branch. And so the three of us are the rudimentary parts of what used to be an organization with about 48 or so for civil service and about 15 support contractors supporting it. Quite a valuable activity, as a matter of fact. That's the origin of that.
It existed for quite a while in Gangster Laboratory. And then at one point, there was a reorganization. Reflect on that.
Yeah, that reorganization has an interesting history. And some of the other people probably talk to it more than I can. However, during the ADMA days, going down to the Cape and flying the vet rockets, the project engineer for that, under, let's see, the Army had a facility down there. He was, of course, still at the Marshall. Then moved down to the Cape, hopefully, yeah. Anyway, a major down there in the Army was the project engineer for the vet rockets. That major just happened to be Rocco Petrone. And so Rocco and I got to know each other quite well. And he was the one responsible for all the paperwork and getting things fired and getting them on the range, etc. Subsequent to becoming National Marshal, as you all know, Rocco moved on that after he retired out of the Army into the NASA. And I'm not just sure all the positions have held.
The NASA organization in Florida.
Right. And then he came up to Marshall as the director of the Marshall Space Flight Center when the exodus of the German leadership occurred. And Rocco, Space Science Lab. You just coming up.
Rocco was director when I arrived back.
Well, it was right before you came up. But anyway, Rocco called me one day and he said, Bill, he says, do you mind if I'd like to move your division over in Space Science Lab. And I'm not sure of the exact word, but he said something to the effect that you need to get a group over there that understands what the center's all about, and so they quit playing with themselves and start making some contributions. And so I said, well, if you'd like for me to go over, I'll be glad to. And we came in shortly thereafter. The tone of what was old ADMA was research laboratories understood and they did a lot of great work, and there's a lot of stories there too, research work, but it kind of spun off into the other thing. They really weren't part of the main body of engineering. But anyway, that evolved from that particular.
And the mission of the whole center evolved with it.
It really did. And I think the Space Science Lab, at least for a good while, benefited from that until a later situation evolved and we moved back into what was there lab.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the shuttle and what environmental information went into the design of the shuttle.
Well, the environmental design information that was brought into the shuttle actually was based on the what we did in the Jupiter Redstone days, which evolved into the Saturn. And still over into the Apollo spacecraft, that is. We developed with JSC. You have to understand this part of it, but the other doesn't make sense. Originally in the early 60s, we only had the responsibility, we only dealt with what happened in Marsh. We didn't deal with the interaction with JSC and environmental inputs or anything like that, although we did answer questions about that. In the mid-60s or thereabout, there were some activities that took place with Rockwell and JSC and whatnot, and we became involved with it. Saved a good bit of money. Walking spacecraft and other things. They discovered that there was a real need to have an integrated environmental input for the bid. ASC didn't have a continuity. We made many friends down there, and they never built a bid like ours. We served them just like we did Marsh. That was even more so during the shuttle era, where JSC had the systems engineering responsibility. No, Saturn, Marshall had the responsibility to insertion in orbit. But when it came to the shuttle, Marshall lost the responsibility. As soon as it lifted off that pad, it became JSC's. So, in terms of the system part of it. So, we enjoyed a very good relationship with JSC during the shuttle era. All through it. All the environmental requirements came through the division. That doesn't mean we did them all, but it came through us. And so the same is true, by the way, with the space station. All the environmental design requirements for the space stations came out of the division. And the story that you're interested in a minute. But in any event, on the shuttle, it started at the very beginning. In fact, it was one of the first documents that was written, was the environmental requirements for the shuttle. The risk levels and the others for the winds and you name it originated out of the division. We used to joke that after we put them out and got them signed off on by Thompson down at JSC, had the program up and everything, we couldn't change them ourselves, which wasn't quite true. They were pretty well cast in concrete. So that is, then we follow that on through the whole shuttle program. And it's still true today.
There were some new problems on the shuttle that were related to the use of the solid propellants and the burning products from the solid propellants, where they would go. Can you expand a little bit on that issue? The shuttle solids put out, and it mixes with the water that comes out of the SSMEs, it's out hydrochloric acid. And that caused a good bit of concern, to say the least. And we did a lot of the fusion analyses, predictions, etc. As a matter of fact, in the earlier days of the shuttle, the fusion model came out of us. The model they have down there today is a derivative of that model, and the Air Force is using it. But in any event, we did the transport calculations and everything. It resulted in moving of the visitor stands, a lot of other things out from the launch pad. There was a big concern that developed relative to the byproducts of the SRB and the SSME, and destroy the ozone layer, etc. A friend of mine that turned out that he was a JSC. Tell this little story because he was making a big story about how a lot of research needed to be done on that and how it was going to destroy the ozone layer or it could, etc., etc., etc. And I got a call from Bill Lucas one day, and Bill had been to a management council meeting headquarters where this guy, I'm not sure his name was going, I think he'd given a presentation or something. What he had done had come to the attention of him, and it was creating a bit of anxiety, to say the least, among people. Bill called me and he said he would prefer in the future, before anybody in the group, he thought we had done the analysis, made those pronouncements, that they would at least be kind enough to inform him, which was absolutely correct. We all did that.
And I said, well, I said, I have no problem with your request, absolutely, but unfortunately, the individual did not work for me. He worked for JSC. And so that, he said, well, let's just back away from it. And what did I think about it? I said, I don't think it's a problem. I said, sure, it's going to make a little bit, like Cooper did back in the Saturday or where we exploded the water tank, he did, to see if it was going to happen. Three of them, I think, that was two, I think. And the Earth's atmosphere is a very forgiving thing. With that tons of water that got floated up there, it hardly had any effect on the atmosphere. It was a very small perturbation. Well, the same thing is true here. It turned out to be the truth. And so we were all right. But it died away. There used to be, at the very beginning, some of the service stations in the Cape area had free shuttle car wash because the byproducts from the exhaust were falling around in the closed area on cars, and of course it would heat the tank. But they drew a corridor around based on a lot of analysis we did, and didn't have any more trouble once they got the water.
There was a requirement, I guess, on what direction the wind was blowing as a launch criteria that came out of this problem.
That's true. If you wanted offshore winds for one thing, and that minimized it too.
Well, another thing that I would like to maybe comment on, if I remember correctly, on the launch of the first shuttle, your folks had arranged to have the real-time meteorological cloud observations made and brought down to Huntsville, and we actually looked at the plume of the launch of Shuttle 1 in real time from the Met satellite.
Yes, I forgot all about that. Yeah,
There's a lot of talk right these days about celebrating the first shuttle launch, and that was an interesting aspect of that first shuttle launch.
Yeah, you can see the exhaust from the Met satellite. The reason for that is when we came over from the Army, okay, the division, believe it or not, got the first funding out of what is the Space Sciences Directorate and Headquarters. Research, the Space Sciences Lab didn't get it, we thought they did, but we had a better political arrangement headquarters than they did. We had the first funding out of that. And at the very beginning, I'd say within the first couple of years, about 90% of what we did was engineering applications, and a lot of research went into it, an awful lot of research went into it. And about 10% was funded in that area. By the time in 86 when I retired, I'd say something like 75% of our, or 70% anyway, of our resources and everything came out of the science side, and about 30 out of the other side. We built it. So this had its heyday, if you like, or a big buildup in the shuttle, before the shuttle year, right at that time frame. And so we were very heavily involved with some of the Met satellites in terms of validating what the measurements they were making from Stargate and network. So we were quite familiar with what the Met satellites put out. And that's how we were able to get that information and provide it. It worked out very well in our time.
It impressed the market manager to be able to see from a Met satellite the plume from the launch of the first shuttle.
Yes.
Nice.
It was a very nice addition, you're right. I forgot about it, but you're right.
Another problem that came up during those days was lightning. And your group, I think, was very involved in the lightning hazard of the Cape and so forth. Can you comment on all that?
Well, that again dates back into the Saturn era. And the person in the group that had the division, the people in the group, each one had their areas of specialty. Like the division had within the agency the greatest spectrum mix, that is, of people in the atmospheric and space environment areas of any one organization, including God and the rest of it. And we had people in the lighting area, okay? Especially during the shuttle area. But in the Saturn era,
one bishop was hit by lightning, and that really brought people's attention to it.
well, let me digress on that.
Please
because
do,
it's
Ted.
important.
Tell the story.
But fellow in my group, Ben Daniels, he had a strong interest in this area. So we put together the lightning, like this design requirement for the Saturn. And of course, then became suspicious that the guys over at Astyonics may not have been looking at those criteria the way he thought they ought to. So I proceeded to send a memo up to the Saturn office that recommending that they take another look at those, and just be taken a look at. Now, they went back to Astyonics and they did this, and I forget the people's names a little bit. But anyway, they were all friends. And they did, and they went back and looked at the bonding and everything else on the side. And afterwards, they politely reminded me that next time they would appreciate it if we would go straight to them rather than the program office. Neither here nor there it served a purpose, because, as I mentioned, the marshal has the responsibility to insert an orbit for the Saturn ball. Okay? He didn't have the responsibility for the spacecraft. The environment department, they did what they wanted. Anyway, I forget which one it was that struck by lightning, okay, we survived. And quite candidly, the reason we survived it, and this is noted in the report, had the vehicle been on spacecraft control, the monument existed there, which was not, it's more than ours, we would all probably have lost it. We got very concerned about that. Being on spacecraft control, we survived. At that point, JSC created a major endeavor in that aspect of it. All kinds of constraints and what they were going to do. And it carried on into the shuttle era, as a matter of fact. I'm going to say to you, the launch commit criteria that we came up with were based on our environment requirements, okay, and we didn't implement it. The ones the JSC used in the laboratory were not quite the same. So when we got over into the shuttle time frame, JSC nominated, if we can use that expression, because they were funding an awful lot of research applications, kind of like some of the stuff on the deck, on triggered lightning, and all this type of stuff, okay? And discharges out of animals and thunderstorms, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And instrumentation, applications and towers to measure the instrumentation on towers.
Yeah, the ground mills, the field mills, and all this. We put the first ones in. So that is how the shuttle developed problem areas it did, and constraints that we need with the launches to keep that from happening. The shuttle is a different configuration too. It's not the simple configuration Saturn Apollo was. Like bonding is not that easy.
And there are still, I believe, lightning constraints on the shuttle launches. Go back to this whole story that you told.
They were just recently updated about 2 or 3 years ago. As a matter of fact, one of those papers I gave you, those criteria, they're more severe than what we have. I think the chances of losing the shuttle due to the lightning is quite significant. Matter of fact, losing it to the windows is no good.
No, because the cases where you'd be in trouble are avoided.
It's true. And even if we went over it, we pretty well covered that case too. Okay. Is that-
Well, you retired when?
86. No, I'm retired
Out of my
You're
80s.
lucky you did.
Oh, what have you been doing since?
Well, as you are aware, when I retired, I went out and talked to the people out at good age. I was doing research.
Probably.
No.
Beforehand, Don Ruma.
Yeah. When I talked to him,
Don Ruma was the vice president first.
This happened, the Challenger were in January, okay? I had planned to step down in February or March. But when the Challenger accident occurred, I ended up on three of those committees and whatnot. And as you all know, the freezing of the O-rings, and everybody was concerned about, one of the things they needed to be concerned about what was the design requirements. And I think shortly after that panel was formed, I received a visit from one of the gentlemen on it, and we went over the design requirements. And he said, "Oh, it looks like you're clean." That wasn't the source of the problem. That's another story. Anyway, so I stayed on through that part of it and retired. This was in July, if I'm not mistaken. I had gone out and talked to the guy down in Louisville about transitioning out there in some manner. I didn't do that. And he thought it was a good idea, and I think he put in a kind of word of people on it. As a matter of fact, you were already there. I really didn't know what I was going to get involved in, but I thought it was interesting. So that is what led to me transitioning out to the UAH and subsequent research institute. But
You came as director of research.
right, Harold Wilson at the College of Science, under it, trying to form an atmospheric science department, and he offered the department to me, but I was more interested in where I was, and I helped him get it going, and I did take a research guy, position in there. He was going to do me tenure regularly, and I told him, no, I didn't do that. But anyway, that's how I ended up having the faculty position, which I still have today, by the way. And we did the research institute, which I stayed in until about 1986, I think it was. And the research institutes were built up to about 115 people or so, of which about 50 or so were students. And I decided that we didn't retire to manage a lot of people. And so I decided to retire out of that, but I stayed with the capital faculty position and still teach one class and started as a consultant. Still work 2 days a week, so that's the very simple in that. But in any event, both in the environment and in the technical standards area, which I helped with the AIS standards program going, and as a result, helped in the national. But so we continued to do the environmental aspects, but a lot of other stuff. A lot of what's going on with the aviation and mining,
Aircraft and so
not one of the Army Missile Command, but they call it Army Aviation Missile Command, I think it's called now. Got a lot of work on there to get started, as you all know, back then. Came about the first time I said that we needed to refresh its status for the Army and the NASA. UAH's status of both has sunk, as you all know, pretty bad. And I think what you did and what I did a little bit was you resurrected that. We had a good relationship. But it's a little bit of a transition in that area.
And you're still doing something. What's this course?
It's atmospheric science, and what I'm doing now is UAH is unique in its graduate student program in the seminar class. It's a required class, 2 semesters for master's and doctoral students. They have to write a term paper out of it. They have to do a presentation in it. Most students don't do that. And they have a lot of people in it, give lectures and that, as well as invite people, etc. And it's been enjoyable. That's all.
Well, Bill, you've had quite a career. I assume you enjoyed it all.
Oh, I think it's been a unique career. I've met all kinds of people, and I think the best thing for the career was that coming out from Brown, Reese, Lucas, and everyone else concerned, Tom and all of them, the division enjoyed a respect and was an integral part of the design and development process rather than in the Air Force. It was just a source of information. We were not a source of information. We were part of the decision-making process. And that is
Thank you very much for joining us this morning. I'm delighted to have this as part of our oral